Every once in a while, a story makes an incredible journey through time, from a dusty old library shelf, across a couple of centuries, and boom, right onto our screens. Today, we're cracking open one of those stories, a first-hand account of an empire that's long gone, and maybe a lesson in how to truly see the world.
So, how is this even possible? How are we reading a book from the early 1800s right now? Well, it's all thanks to a huge undertaking by Google to carefully scan and preserve library books, making all that knowledge available to, well, everyone. It's basically a digital time capsule.
And here it is. This is the actual artifact at the center of our story today. It was published way back in 1810, and it sat on a shelf in Harvard's Widner Library for generations before it got digitized. Just think about that journey, from a printing press over 200 years ago all the way to us.
The book's official title is An Account of the Empire of Morocco, and our author is a man named James Gray Jackson, Esquire. He put all his observations together to give the Western world what he was convinced was the first truly accurate picture of this North African empire.
So, let's meet our guide for this journey. James Gray Jackson, you see, was no casual tourist. He was a long-term resident with a very bold and honestly pretty controversial claim that pretty much every other European who'd written about Morocco had gotten it completely wrong.
And what gave him the confidence to say that? Well, his knowledge wasn't from some short diplomatic visit. No, Jackson's entire account was built on notes and observations he made while living in the country for 16 years. He didn't just visit, he lived there.
And here's his core argument. In his own words, he really believed that even though a bunch of books had been written about Morocco, Europeans were just profoundly ignorant about the place. He argued most writers were just superficial travelers who never got past the surface. But Jackson didn't just complain about other writers. He actually laid out a clear set of rules, a whole methodology, really, for how a traveler could get true, authentic knowledge about a foreign country. It's basically a 19th century masterclass in cultural immersion. So here's his four-step plan. First, you have to live there for a good long while. Second, you've got to learn the language so you don't need interpreters. Third, you should adopt the local way of dressing, which he saw as key for both safety and respect. And finally, you have to genuinely study the people, their character, their customs, the whole shebang.
And you can really see the difference here, right? On one hand, you have these other travelers making quick, superficial visits, totally standing out in their European clothes. But Jackson's method was the complete opposite, deep immersion. He was convinced his was the only way to get past stereotypes and see the truth of a place.
Okay, so I think we've established our guide's credentials. The man spent 16 years on the ground, and he had a serious method. So, now that we can trust him, let's finally see this empire the way he did.
You know, the first thing that really jumps out from Jackson's account isn't what you'd expect. It's not political drama or exotic danger. It's just this sense of overwhelming abundance. He describes the northern provinces of Morocco as one enormous, fertile garden.
I mean, just look at this list. He goes on and on about the most delicious oranges in the world, top-quality cotton, and this famous Mykonasi tobacco that was super prized for snuff. He basically describes the whole northern part of the empire as one continuous, unbelievably productive cornfield.
And it wasn't just food. Because he was exploring so deeply, he documents these unique local materials, like this stuff called RR wood. He even notes that the beams in his own house, made from this wood, were perfectly fine after 50 years, totally untouched by rot or insects.
Okay, let's head south now to the province of Suseth. Jackson describes this place as the richest province in the entire empire. And get this, he says it has perhaps a finer climate in the world.
Sousse was just a powerhouse of valuable stuff. Sugarcane grew wild. The olive and almond plantations were so huge that a person could travel for 2 whole days under their shade without a break. It had valuable gums, indigo dye, and even working copper and silver mines. And if you want some perspective on this insane abundance, get this. In a district right next door, dates were so common that a camel load, we're talking over 300 pounds, cost just $2. It's just an almost unimaginable level of natural wealth.
But Jackson's book isn't all farming and trade routes. He was also this really sharp observer of the natural world, and he documented the local animal life with some incredible detail. Take his description of the hyena, or dubba.
He points out its ferocious look, but says its personality is actually more stupid than fierce. In fact, the name became a local metaphor, so if you called someone a dubba, it was like calling them a blockhead.
And you are not going to believe this. He documented this absolutely wild method they had for hunting them. A hunter would strip down, crawl into the cave, and literally talk to the hyena, soothe it with his voice. Then, he'd stroke its back, slip a noose over its neck, and signal his buddies outside to yank it out. It's absolutely insane.
Then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have the gazelle, or gazelle. Jackson describes it almost like a poet himself, swift, elegant, timid, with that famously beautiful, large black eye. He points out that it's the ultimate symbol of beauty in Arabian culture and poetry. And this is exactly the kind of amazing cultural insight you get from his immersive method. The highest compliment an Arab could pay a woman was to say she had the eyes of a gazelle. That's a detail you just don't get on a quick trip.
So, as we wrap up here, it's pretty clear that Jackson's 200-year-old book is so much more than a historical travel guide. It's really an argument for a certain way of seeing the world, a lesson in the difference between just looking at a place and truly understanding it.
And that leaves us with a big question for our own time, doesn't it? We can pull up satellite images, articles, and videos about any place on Earth in a matter of seconds. But Jackson's work really makes you wonder. In an age of endless information, what is the value of spending 16 years just to truly see one place?